My name's Angelo, and welcome to We Want Picks. This is the only channel dedicated to UFC picks and DraftKings lineups run by professional fighters and MMA insiders. Every week, I join Nick Newell, professional fighter, professional model, and ESPN Top 10 guest, along with Dan Kramer, UFC fighter, Bellator fighter, Ultimate Fighter alumni, and Jacob Lyons, a skinny kid from Indiana. And we break down every single fight, the betting odds, the DraftKings picks, and we set you up for success. This week, we're breaking down UFC 258, Usman versus Burns. Next up on the UFC 258, Usman versus Burns fight card, we have Gabriel Green versus Philip Rowe. This is going to be a fun fight. This is a very evenly matched fight, a very back and forth fight. And I personally am actually pretty excited for this, especially considering I don't even think this is on ESPN. I think this is early prelims on ESPN Plus. Jacob, what are your thoughts on this fight? I mean, are you oddly excited for this as I am?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting matchup, especially if you look at Philip Rowe. If you look at tape on Philip Rowe, he is a monster. He is 6'3", making that weight cut. And, the first thing I did, watching tape on Gabriel Green, and he is tough. He's going to come forward. He's going to be in your face. Sometimes it looked like he was relying on his chin a little bit too much. He was getting caught. He's also very active on his back, it seemed like. I think there was one fight he got taken down a couple of times, and he's doing some wild stuff on his back to try and get up, throwing up wild submissions. But Philip Rowe, I think that's where he lives, is in the submission game. He's going for takedowns. And I kind of had a question for all three of you guys, since you guys are all in jiu-jitsu, done jiu-jitsu. Is Philip Rowe's length, is somebody's length in jiu-jitsu an issue, or is it something that people just kind of, it's not really an issue? I don't do jiu-jitsu, so I don't know, but Philip Rowe being that much bigger on the ground, would that give Gabriel, issues where he might not normally see him?
I'll let Nick answer, because Nick's the jiu-jitsu black belt in the group here. But 100% length matters.
Dan, Dan's a black belt too, I think, right?
No, I think I got my purple belt while I was hitting pads at American Top Team. So I never really, I trained with the gi a little bit, but I probably, at the time when I was training, I didn't really care about training with the gi that much. So I may start picking it back up now and start getting belted, but yeah, no. When I got my purple belt from Laborio, I was literally hitting pads in the cage next to a jiu-jitsu class. And all of a sudden I started hearing people like clapping, and I went over and got my purple belt in my MMA gear. So that's how much I kind of embraced the gi. So I never got belted up beyond that.
Okay. Well, yeah, lengthwise is good. It helps on top with your Darce chokes. It helps anacondas. It's easier to do triangles when you have long legs. But all these things, it makes it harder to get up. I feel the taller you are, you can stiff arm better. But it's difficult to kind of be like that little. If you look at someone like Joseph Benavidez, it's like almost impossible to hold down. He's just a little like fire hydrant of a man, and he just like moves around and stays tight. And it has its advantages and its disadvantages for MMA.
Yeah, Jacob. I would agree with what Nick said too, and especially advantages and disadvantages. Right, when you're tall and lanky, it opens up certain submissions. You can get certain chokes. Darce's things a little bit easier with longer arms, but it also generally hurts with your top pressure ability. So it depends on your game. Some guys that are long use it really well. I think of like Cole Miller. He was long and tall, and he had a great game for that. He had a great guards, triangles, all sorts of stuff off his back. So I do think, though, MMA has evolved a little bit, has evolved a lot to where it's tough to get submissions off your back nowadays. If you go into a fight knowing the guy you're fighting is tall and lanky with submissions off his back, you better be preparing for that. So I don't think it'll be a factor in this fight, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I think first of all, Jacob, as a complete outsider to the MMA world, solid solid insight there. I think the length absolutely matters, mostly on your back. To Dan's point, if you're super long, it's really hard to take all of that pressure and put it on somebody's chest when your legs are 5 feet behind you. On bottom, you can throw up triangles. You can do a lot of that type stuff that you wouldn't be able to do if you had short, stubby legs. But also to that point, if you're not prepared for that, then what are you doing in your training camp? So before I move on to Nick for his official pick, what is your pick, Jacob? Who did you pick to win this fight?
Yeah, so I was looking at, and I forgot to mention Philip Rowe's nickname is the Fresh Prince, which is another. Yeah. I'm all about nicknames, so I almost picked him just for the Fresh Prince a nickname. But Gabriel Green to me looked like he's not scared to be in any position, and I love that confidence. He got taken down. He didn't look like it was an issue to him in a stand-up game. He's going to press forward. He doesn't seem like he's rattled at all in any situation. So in this fight, I am going with Gabriel Green. Neither one of them are going to be in my lineup, but I am going with Gabriel Green.
Cool. Yeah, I personally, I'm going with Green as well. I think this is a really close, tough fight. I think Green is a little more well-rounded. Both of these guys are super tough. They've literally never won a decision. Neither one of them. All of their wins are by stoppage. 7 wins for Rowe, 9 wins for Green, all by stoppage. So these guys finish fights. They go out there to win. I think Gabriel Green is a little more well-rounded. I think he's got a little bit better jiu-jitsu, a little bit better wrestling. I think striking, they're actually pretty close. But I think all in all, he's the better MMA fighter. Nothing would surprise me here. I will tell you now, I do have Green in my lineup, but it was between the two of these guys. You need an underdog, and that $200 difference actually mattered quite a bit in my lineup. So, Nick, you breaking up this Green love fest, or what are your thoughts here?
I think Philip Rowe is a great fighter. They do have the common opponent, I believe, in Shabazian. So they both fought Shabazian, and Shabazian got finished by both of them. So by Green, it was in the first round. And I think by Rowe, it was the third round, if I was correct. And I think he was losing that fight. And then Rowe came back and ended up finishing the fight. If you look at their records, Rowe has fought not the best competition. He validated himself by beating Shabazian, which was his big win that showed that he's legit. But I don't know if he beat anyone with a winning record before he got the shot in the Contender Series. Meanwhile, Green has beaten a lot of people with winning records and very tough fighters. That doesn't always mean that he's going to win. There's a fighter in the UFC, Randy Costa, who fought the biggest bums you could ever find on the local scene, like 0-7 guys, and he went to 4-0 and got in the UFC, and he has 2 knockouts. He lost his first debut in a barn burner and then knocked out 2 really good fighters. So that's not the best indicator. For that, Philip Rowe being relatively untested, I would stay away from him. And Green, I think is the favorite to win. I will favor Green in this fight, but I am staying away from it.
Yeah, and what's interesting is we don't see this very often, where he's the odds-on favorite to win, but DraftKings ruled him the underdog. He's the less expensive fighter. That is because the odds shifted. As you know, when odds are set by odds makers, they say this person's going to win, I think by this much. This person's going to lose, I think by this much. And then as the money comes in, those odds shift. So Rowe opened up as the favorite, and then all the bet money came in, and that shifted over to Green. So now he's the favorite. But as we discussed last week, DraftKings does not change the value. So even if one of these opponents is gone, the original person's price will stay there. So the odds have shifted. Green is now the favorite to win, but he is the less expensive fighter. That is why he's in my lineup. But Dan, you have you splitting up here, or again, are we all going to agree on Green?
No, I'm taking Gabriel Green in this one. I am putting him in my lineup. I think a lot of the things you guys said, seems to be the tougher fighter. I think he's got slightly better fundamentals. In watching tape on Rowe, definitely athletic. He's long and tall, looks to be a pretty good striker. But the one big thing I notice is he keeps his hands down low. And even in that win against Shabazian, he got dropped in the first round. And then to Nick's point earlier, I was looking at his record and who he's fought and comparing it to Gabe Green. Prior to that Shabazian win, which he almost lost in the first round, his 3 wins prior to that were against guys that were 0-5, 1-2, and 4-7. So, it's tough to really say he's been tested the same way Green has. Whereas Green, it's his second UFC fight, so he's got the UFC jitters out of the way. He's coming off a loss to a tough Daniel Rodriguez. He looked pretty good in that fight, but he looked tense. He looked like it was his first UFC fight. But he hung tight. He landed some shots. He took some shots. Looks like he's got a pretty good chin. So I think the biggest factor will be if Rowe keeps his hands down low, Green's going to find his chin at some point. And I think he's just a little bit more well-rounded overall.
Yeah, I agree. And that is something I forgot to mention earlier, where Philip Rowe takes a ton of damage. He just takes shots to give shots. So he survives. He keeps moving forward. He makes it work, but Philip Rowe absorbs damage. So it'll be interesting to see if he's willing to take that damage to give it when fighting Green or not. We'll see how it goes. But all of us have taken Green. We think he's a more well-rounded fighter. And if you're watching this for DraftKings picks, he's not a terrible pick at $8,000, especially when he's the favorite. Before you go, check out the description below. In there, we have links to our Facebook, our Twitter, our Instagram, and more importantly, to our DraftKings League. Check out the league, join the league, participate in the contests, and as we get going and as you start winning, we're going to start handing out gift cards and participating and doing things like that. So check those out. Every week, there are drops on every fight card. So make sure you check out this channel and our social media on Saturday before the fights start so that you have our most updated lineups and picks.